After the small plane crash, Ridge Forrester emerged from the wreckage with his body intact but his mind fractured. Selective amnesia had robbed him of everything but the blazing memory of his first love, Brooke Logan. His children, his decades of rivalry and reconciliation, the empire he built gone. In his mind, it was still the era of stolen glances, champagne kisses, and endless nights of obsession with Brooke. The present blurred, the past burned with terrifying clarity. And for Brooke, it was everything she had ever wanted, only it was all wrong. Brooke tried to temper her joy. She tried to act cautious, tried to play it slow. But Ridge, every time he looked into her eyes, saw the woman he believed was still his destiny. And she let it happen. She let him fall back into her arms, into a version of herself she hadn't been for years. In the shadows of the Forrester mansion, they danced again to the echoes of their history, and for Brooke, the lines between memory and manipulation began to fade. Her love was real, but so was the guilt. Because Ridge didn't remember Steffi or Thomas. Didn't remember the legacy they had created. He didn't even know they existed. Taylor Hayes, upon hearing the news, returned to Los Angeles with a storm in her heart. She had faced heartbreak before, but this was different. This wasn't Ridge choosing Brooke over her. This was Ridge forgetting that she and their children ever mattered. But Taylor was not one to drown in loss. She summoned the best neurological specialist she could find, Dr. Adrian Mallory, a brilliant, young neurologist with an ironic charm and disarming intensity. He believed in unconventional methods, and Taylor, desperate, agreed to every bizarre, borderline insane therapeutic idea he proposed. Dr. Mallory's most radical plan? Create a fully immersive life script, a physical and emotional recreation of Ridge's life, constructed inside the Forrester estate. It would be a living theater of the last 30 years, with actors, objects, photos, even old perfume scents to trigger memory. But to do this, Brooke and Taylor would have to collaborate. They would have to revisit the battles, betrayals, and bonds that defined their tangled web with Ridge. They would have to relive their war, and worse, perform it. At first, it was unbearable. Brooke snapping back into her younger self, flirtatious, unapologetic, confident, and Taylor trying not to flinch as she watched Ridge fall again and again for Brooke's charm. Taylor's face would tighten every time Ridge asked, "Why would I ever leave Brooke? What could possibly be more important than our love?" The pain was fresh every time, and yet she pressed on. For Ridge. For their children. Steffi and Thomas were devastated. Their father didn't recognize them. Steffi tried to stay strong, tried to remind him through presence, through stories, even old family videos. But Ridge stared at her like she was a stranger. Thomas, darker and more volatile, blamed Brooke. He always had. Now, with his father lost to some romantic mirage of the past, he seethed with resentment. He threatened to pull out of Forrester Creations, to leave LA altogether. But hope, always the calm in his storm, urged him to stay. For Douglas, for their family, for the chance that Ridge might come back. Meanwhile, the mansion transformed into a labyrinth of memory. Brooke and Taylor worked like haunted archivists, recreating rooms from different decades. They pulled out old wedding gowns, old fight tapes, old photos of the family. Eric and Donna helped, reluctantly, watching with quiet unease as the past rose up like a ghost army. And Ridge wandered through it all, confused, charmed, and occasionally terrified. He would touch a picture frame and flinch. He would hear a melody from a wedding video and stop breathing for a moment. And every now and then, the flicker of recognition would spark behind his eyes, but vanish before it took root. Then came the night of the Paris dinner, a recreated event from the late 90s when Ridge had to choose between Brooke and Taylor in front of the family. The room was lit exactly as it had been. The wine was the same. The tension, identical. Everyone held their breath as Ridge looked at both women. He touched Taylor's hand. He stared into Brooke's eyes. He blinked and remembered nothing. Instead, he stood up and said, "I want to start over." With Brooke. Taylor left the room without a word. Brooke followed Ridge to the garden. The moonlight was beautiful. She kissed him. He kissed her back. And yet, for a moment, she hesitated. Was this love or theft? Dr. Mallory pushed harder. He initiated deep memory immersion. A dangerous procedure involving sensory overload, where Ridge was simultaneously exposed to videos, voices, and physical triggers. Taylor sat beside him, reading him childhood letters from Steffi and Thomas. Brooke played back Ridge's own speeches from past press conferences. Eric brought out old design sketches with Ridge's handwriting. It was a storm of sensation. Ridge screamed. He collapsed. And then he spoke Steffi's name. It wasn't full memory, but it was something. A crack in the armor. Steffi came in, crying. Ridge looked at her and said, "Your eyes. They're your mother's." And then he passed out. The family held vigil for days. When he woke up, he was blank again, but now he asked questions. "Why do I feel like I know her?" He asked about Taylor. "Why does the name Thomas make my heart race?" He was breaking through. Slowly, but with each breakthrough came consequences. Brooke became paranoid. She had Ridge again, finally, fully, but now the real Ridge was returning. And the real Ridge was complicated. He loved Brooke, but he also loved Taylor. He loved his children. And he might not stay the man who only remembered her. Thomas, growing impatient, confronted Brooke. "You're enjoying this," he accused. "You want to keep him trapped in your fantasy." Brooke slapped him. "Don't you dare," she said. "I have done everything to bring him back. Don't blame me for your father's trauma." But Thomas wasn't wrong. Brooke was split between longing and fear. If Ridge remembered everything, would he still choose her? Then, the final push came unexpectedly. It wasn't a video. It wasn't a script. It was RJ, Ridge and Brooke's youngest son, who had been away during the worst of it. RJ walked in, hugged Ridge, and said, "Dad, you taught me to fight for my family. You have to fight for us now." Something broke inside Ridge. He stood, trembling, and whispered, "RJ, Steffi, Thomas," and the dam burst. Memories came rushing in. Not all at once, not cleanly, but violently. Moments slammed into his mind. Steffi's birth, Thomas's first design, Taylor's smile, Brooke's wedding gowns, the fire, the betrayals, the passion, the wars. He clutched his head. He screamed. He sobbed. And when he finally opened his eyes, he said, "I remember everything." The silence was deafening. Taylor cried. Brooke looked away. Ridge stood in the middle of the recreated mansion, the theater of his life, and saw it all. The pain, the beauty, the chaos. He turned to Brooke and said, "You gave me everything. Even when I forgot, you fought for me." Then he turned to Taylor. "And you saved me. You never gave up. Not once." He turned to Steffi and Thomas. "My babies, I'm so sorry." He wept. They held him. The family reunited. But peace wouldn't last. Not in this world. Because memory brings not just healing, but accountability. Ridge now had to face the people he had forgotten. He had to face the choices he had made before the crash. Business deals. Personal betrayals. Unfinished love stories. Old enemies. And most terrifyingly, himself. And somewhere in the corners of the house, where the life script still played on silent monitors, a new question emerged. If Ridge could forget once, could he forget again? And what if this time, it wasn't by accident? Quinn Fuller's return to Los Angeles was anything but subtle. Months of silence were shattered when she reemerged at a private Forrester Creations gala, dressed in couture black, radiating mystery, and introducing Imperium, a new, high-end fragrance she claimed would redefine sensual power. The launch was mesmerizing. The branding was flawless. The scent, intoxicating. Within days, Imperium was being hailed as revolutionary, an aroma that ignited confidence, heightened allure, and created an unshakable emotional impact. Everyone wanted it. Everyone needed it. But no one understood what it really was. Behind the scenes, strange things began happening almost immediately. Forrester models, typically poised, disciplined, and polished, started exhibiting erratic behavior. Zendaya-like grace was replaced with sudden bouts of aggression, overconfidence, and unprovoked confrontations. During a rehearsal, a longtime runway veteran shoved a younger model mid-stride and shouted she would not be outshined by a child. At first, it was dismissed as stress. Fashion Week was near. Tensions always ran high. But then it escalated. Another model smashed a makeup mirror backstage. A male model had to be restrained after screaming that someone was stealing his thoughts. And it was always the same ones, those wearing Imperium. Katie Logan noticed first. She wasn't in the business of chemicals anymore, but her years studying biochemistry at Georgetown before life redirected her had taught her to observe, to ask questions others wouldn't. She had worn the perfume too, briefly, and felt off. Not ill, just altered. She found herself impatient, impulsive. When she raised it to Carter, he dismissed it, saying stress, caffeine, maybe the pressures of being a Logan in a Forrester world. But Katie's instincts screamed louder. She began her own quiet inquiry. Meanwhile, Quinn thrived in the attention. Her return was magnetic, drawing in designers, influencers, and even reluctant praise from Steffi, who privately resented the chaos Quinn once caused but couldn't deny Imperium's viral success. Sales exploded. International orders piled up. Retailers begged for exclusivity. Imperium was on track to become the fastest-selling fragrance in Forrester history. And that's when the deeper symptoms began. Not just rage. Obsession. Paranoia. Hypersexuality. Models refusing to remove Imperium between shoots. Staff sneaking samples out of secured cabinets. Even Ridge commented that the scent lingered like a presence, a command. It began to infect the creative energy of the design house. Designs grew darker, more provocative. Arguments became explosive. Couples that had been stable were suddenly at war or devouring each other with reckless desire. Attention spread across the company like a virus. No one could name it. No one traced it to the scent. Except Katie. She dug deeper. Used her old university connections to test a stolen sample. The results were stunning and horrifying. Imperium contained not just synthetic musks and aromatics, but a series of neuromodulators, chemical compounds designed to mimic neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Subtle, undetectable, without sophisticated analysis. The formula had been masked within legal fragrance ingredients, but functioned as a mood-altering drug. Not strong enough to sedate or hallucinate, but enough to shift perception, to amplify emotion, and to lower inhibition. In short, behavioral control. Katie took her findings to Steffi. At first, disbelief. Then anger. Steffi accused Katie of attacking Quinn out of old personal vendettas. But Katie presented the data, the charts, the molecular breakdown. She brought witness reports. And slowly, the truth became undeniable. Imperium wasn't just a perfume. It was a living experiment. But who was behind it? Could Quinn really have designed something so dangerous alone? The truth unfolded in layers. Katie and Carter broke into the secured files of Quinn Artisan Fragrances, the company fronting Imperium. What they found was shocking. Emails between Quinn and a mysterious investor codenamed Oberon. Detailed logs of behavioral shifts tracked over weeks. Dossiers on each model chosen for early testing, personality types, emotional triggers, social behaviors. It wasn't just a perfume. It was a controlled trial. And the runway had been the lab. As Katie confronted Quinn in the Forrester main showroom, tensions erupted. "You weaponized beauty," she accused. "You turned people into experiments." But Quinn didn't flinch. She said calmly, "Everyone is always selling control, Katie. I just made it honest. I gave people what they wanted. Power, confidence, edge. I didn't force anyone to wear it." But Katie wasn't buying it. "You didn't warn them. You didn't disclose. That's not empowerment. That's manipulation." The fallout was swift and brutal. Steffi immediately pulled Imperium from the production line. Lawsuits loomed. Media frenzy ignited. Fashion reporters dissected the scandal. Was it unethical chemistry or just modern innovation? But behind the scenes, the threat ran deeper. Oberon was real and still in the shadows. Katie discovered that this figure had ties to a pharmaceutical conglomerate previously sanctioned for illegal clinical trials. This wasn't just about perfume anymore. It was about mind control disguised as lifestyle luxury. Meanwhile, the model suffered. Some developed dependency-like symptoms. Others experienced emotional crashes after stopping Imperium. A young up-and-coming model, Lana, attempted suicide after being cut from the campaign and going off the fragrance cold turkey. It shattered the illusion that this was just a fashion scandal. It became a public health crisis. The FDA launched an investigation. Criminal charges were considered. And Quinn, cornered, finally cracked. In a televised interview meant to be a PR salvage, she admitted everything. She confessed to designing Imperium as an experiment. She claimed it was meant to test scent as a therapeutic aid to improve lives, not destroy them, but the project had grown beyond her control. She never named Oberon, never revealed the depth of the data collected. But the damage was done. Forrester Creations was under siege. Brooke, who had always distrusted Quinn, demanded she be permanently barred from all Forrester operations. Eric, heartbroken and humiliated, cut all personal and professional ties. Even Carter walked away, shaken by how deeply he had trusted someone capable of such deception. Quinn disappeared once again. Some said to Europe, others whispered she was in hiding under protection, fearing retaliation from those exposed by the experiment. Katie, for her part, didn't stop. With the help of her old professor and Ridge, she traced the final clues. Oberon turned out to be Victor Morans, a reclusive neurochemist believed dead, now operating under a new identity. He had funded Imperium as part of a larger program called Sensory Sovereignty, a black market effort to control elite populations through chemically augmented environments, scents in boardrooms, political summits, luxury stores. Imperium was just a prototype. In the final confrontation, Katie faced Morans in a sterile warehouse outside Palm Springs. She had him wired, recorded, and cornered with federal agents. He smiled as they cuffed him. "Control is just chemistry," he said. "We've known that for decades. I just made it beautiful." Katie stared at him and whispered, "You made it monstrous." The world moved on. Forrester Creations recovered, but never forgot. The runway would never again be seen as just a stage. It had been a battleground. A lab. A line between seduction and surrender. and Imperium was pulled from shelves, its remaining samples destroyed under federal order. But whispers remained. That a few bottles escaped. That private clients had secured hidden reserves. That someone, somewhere, still wore the scent that could command a room without speaking. And in a locked vault, beneath the Forrester archives, Katie kept one vial, labeled, sealed, and never opened. Just in case. Because in a world of beauty and power, nothing ever truly disappears. Especially not control.